Welcome to Canuck of the Dead. We are continuing our discussion on the Halloween franchise. And again, with me, my good friend, Benner. How are you doing, buddy?
Hey, man. Good. Yeah, we kind of had to do these ones back to back, which was, I think, perfect. But yeah, thanks for having me back, man. I'm excited to. This has been really fun. It's been super fun. So thanks for having me.
Oh man, thank you. Because I've been looking at these films so much differently since digging in to really talk about them like this. And you're right; these two films you have to do back to back, but they couldn't be more separate. You know?
Oh yeah. In a nutshell, Halloween 5: The Revenge of Michael Myers. Great title, great poster art. Is the antithesis, in my opinion, of Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers, which has an equally great poster and an equally great name. But yeah.
But can weirdly enough, it shows Jamie wearing her clown costume on the poster of 5, but she never wears it.
Right. Which
just hook you in.
if that was our only problem with this flick, I'd let that slide.
Fair enough. Let's take a look at the trailer and we'll get people up to speed.
Sheriff, they want you down at the cemetery.
Today in the cemetery, somebody dug up a coffin. It was a coffin of a 9-year-old girl. You've come back to us, Michael.
When are they going to realize that she is not him? She's just a child.
They know that Michael Myers is her uncle, and that she attacks her stepmother. That's why they fear her, especially on Halloween. You're afraid. You're afraid the whole thing might start to happen again. How many people did he kill last year? Have you forgotten? But you never looked into his face, did you? You never saw his eyes. You never saw that nothing, no expression, blank. My memory goes back 12 years. I prayed that he would burn in hell, but in my heart, I knew that hell would not have him. Michael Myers is outside.
The National Guard will take him to a maximum security facility, but he'll stay till the day he dies.
Never die.
Where we show once again the evilness of trailers. That trailer looks good.
It looks pretty good. Yeah.
Then you go to the theater.
Yeah. We were talking that this is kind of, I think, the point where the series starts having a bit of a diminishing returns with what they were trying to do with it, and a bit of a miscalculation.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
McElroy, the screenwriter for 4, set them up. Like, literally, it's T-ball. He put the ball on the pole. He handed them the bat, everything. And then they decided to play golf. You know?
Yeah. So apparently, so the backstory on this film is that it was rushed into production a year, I think less than a year later, because of the success of Halloween 4. And that people were jazzed about it. And Halloween 4 was a success for the series and brought back Michael Myers successfully. And then they sort of dove into this, right? So, yeah, it's a bit weird. It's as far as I'm concerned, like I said, like saying earlier, it's the antithesis of Halloween 4, as far as I'm concerned. It's a complete opposite of how good everything that's good about Halloween 4 is lost in this film for some weird reason. And I don't know why. I don't know if it was timing. I don't know if it was just what, but it doesn't, it's such a missed opportunity. It's really disappointing.
To me, a large part of it was the director. It was Dominic Othenin-Girard. I guess he's done a couple other things before this. I'm not familiar with the name because I've never really followed him after this. And there were some creative changes he decided to make. One
Okay.
of them being the leading girl. We hinted at this last episode. His preference for a leading girl is to have dark hair, which is why Rachel was summarily executed in the show.
Which is the stupidest okay, go ahead. But okay, go ahead.
No, that is literally all. I wish I had more for Rachel because she deserves so much more than that. But she didn't have dark hair, and that's why it got bumped to Tamara Glynn.
Right. That's like the stupidest. I get this if Rachel was like didn't work in the last film, and if Ellie Cornell was either not interested in doing the film again, or whatever, or another film, or continuing her character, but she's done so dirty in this film. I think it's the first thing we got to address because of this. So, so from what I've read is that that's yes. So I didn't know that about the dark hair, to be honest. But that's a dumb. I mean, why can't she just dye her hair? I guess what she can't do that, isn't it? I don't know. Whatever. So okay, fine. But she's got such a strong connection to the family and to Jamie, and to the rest of the town and everything that she experienced in 4. So apparently, in the original script, she was supposed to get like stabbed through the neck or down the throat with a pair of scissors or shears or something, and she thought that was way too horrible and way too gruesome for that character to go. So they rewrote it so she gets stabbed in the chest. Spoilers alert, but it's a movie from 1989. I think we're okay, but excuse me. But oh god, she's done so dirty in this movie, and I hate it when great characters get done dirty. It's the worst. It's the worst, and it drives me crazy because you have someone that is the audience has really connected with, that has held their own through the film. And again, like we were talking about on Halloween 4, like it's hard to create characters that can supersede original characters. So you're trying to create a character that is as good as Laurie Strode or better. I'm sure there was some talk about we can make this character more relatable. We can make this character a bit more 3-dimensional, because you want to put it the best thing you can. You want to create the best character that you can when you're writing the script, of course. And they knocked it out of the park. Like they really delivered in Halloween 4. And to do her like this, it's like, okay, well, whoever's going to take her place has got to be like, you got to be sure on that. And I'm fine with the character kind of like dying because they're sacrificing themselves to save others or whatever. But she's just thrown away in this film. And it's so brutal. Originally, we didn't actually talk about this in the last episode, but originally, Ellie Cornell was she was picking between, or she was auditioning for Halloween 4 and Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and she picked Halloween, and that's even more frustrating for me because it's like, not that I love Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street 4. I don't know if I'd make changes to the characters in that movie, but again, if you put her, like, she's a competent actress, she really is, and she has a wider range of emotions that she can portray, and she's very relatable. So to have her in the Nightmare on Elm Street series as opposed to Halloween, I don't know. Like, I mean, it just sucks for her because I think that she needed to be in this movie, the whole movie. And I would argue and say that for her, maybe it's good that she's not in Halloween 6, but I think if she was, Halloween 6 would be a much different movie as well. And I think it'd be much stronger. So really disappointing. I hate this movie because of that. That's the main reason. But the rest of it is it's a retcon. It's a great example of a retcon of saying this is kind of where we were thinking of going with Halloween 4, and now we're going in a completely different direction. Oh yeah, this kind of happened, but not really. This happened, but not really. It's just mind-boggling to me. I don't know why that was the case. Like, I don't know why that direction was taken or signed off on or whatever. Again, maybe it was just rushed and they just didn't care. They were like, we got to go. We got to go to camera. We got to shoot this, or everyone's schedule is going to change. That happens in the film business for sure. You reach a point where you're like, you either shoot it and you deliver on the money that you've invested already, or you cancel everything. You lose, half your. It's like putting a deposit down on it's like putting a deposit down on a rental or something, right? And no refunds. it's like, listen, you can pull the plug and not make anything. And of course, Halloween 4 was successful at the box office, made some cash for the companies involved, and so obviously they needed to make this regardless. But it's a real big missed opportunity, and it's I hate this movie because of that, because it's just, and I think they kind of ruined Jamie's character too. All at the same time.
We'll definitely get into that. But I don't understand why, after the success of 4, the first thing they didn't do was nail down that screenwriter. Because obviously that screenwriter is tapping into what people want. And they've said, no, we'll go with this direction. And that's where you have all the retconning starting and just blatant disregards to fact. Because the other thing, the Michael Myers house in this house is not the same house from 1, 2,
Right. Yeah.
Why? Because he wanted it to look more appealing on film.
Which is, I don't know, stupid. Keep that stuff. Keep continuity for me is a big thing. Like, I love continuity movies. I like continuity movies when, like, even when we're talking about like I don't want to get too far off track here, but like newer movies coming out with legacy characters built into them. So in this series, Halloween, the remake, or sorry, the requel of Halloween with Jamie Lee Curtis, and then the follow-up Halloween Kills. Like, I've got problems with Halloween Kills. I love the remake of or the requel of the first one through Blumhouse, because I like the consistency of the characters. I like that the characters are still there. It's the same actors, the same actresses. I like that consistency. So when that consistency is ruined, which, it's a lot of the times in the 80s, they had to do that. They recast characters of different people and et cetera, et cetera. But this is a part where they had that consistency, and they just throw it out the window.
Well, my biggest problem with 4, I mentioned, was him going into the store and of all masks, grabbing the one mask that Michael Myers wears. Right. I get it. I forgive it, because that's continuity. This is what Michael wears. This is what we expect. So when he suddenly walks up to this house and I'm looking at it going, okay, whose house is he at now? And then you come to find out later that this is the Myers house. It's like, what? I would have had it right from the beginning if it was the same house.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the mask you can get away with, because you can say, well, maybe that was a knockoff mask, or maybe it was like a, I don't know. We were talking about this. We were like, is it just another, like, shoddy knockoff William Shatner mask? Like dollar store version, like like, I don't know, who knows, right? But and maybe that's why it looks so weird compared to the original in number 4, right? But even this mask in number 5 is even worse. So I don't know, it sucks. Like, I don't have a lot of love for this movie. I'm sorry if that pisses anyone off, but yeah.
Well, no, neither do I. But I found out the mask didn't fit his face. That's
right, yeah.
why they had to change this one.
Oh, goodness.
Because Don Shanks, the guy who plays Michael in this one, he said, "I'll give it to me," and they tried it on, and it didn't fit.
Right. Okay. Well, so, I don't know. It's like practical effects in the 80s were so awesome, and mask making and like prosthetics and everything, except this goddamn mask is like impossible to like replicate. And I don't know why.
Mask.
Like, because I understand it, like you would craft it out of like clay, right? And then you would cast it, and then you would make a latex mask out of that. Like, I don't understand how they couldn't just take the original mask and replicate it, or like mess it up a bit. Like, if you had to like mess it up for copyright reasons or ownership reasons or whatever, fine, whatever, who cares? But like the actual mask itself, it's just so bizarre that they could never really hit that same design.
You could even do what Zombie did with his and age it, because remember, at the beginning of this film, he's in some hermit's place for a year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is the start. People will say it's number 4, but this is basically the start of the Curse of Thorn subplot, right?
Exactly.
So because there's the whole sequence, the Dr. Death sequence at the start of this film, which was lost. I think it's kind of being restored somewhere. I've never seen it actually. I tried to find it, but there's a whole kind of sequence at the start where of this film where that's why Michael Myers is in that thing. It's pretty loosey goosey too. Like it's like
I've heard of it.
he
Yeah.
falls down the well, or I guess it's a well or the whatever, falls at the end of 4, gets blown away to shit. Awesome sequence. It's pretty amazing. And then he kind of just like they flash back to that, and then he just kind of crawls away, which I guess is fine. I mean, like, I'm not saying that like Michael Myers should be dead at the end of 4, but and I guess it's not as gruesome or as much of a finite death as he has. Sorry, I used the in quotes death in number 2, but I don't know. I just don't need to see him crawling away. It seems a bit flimsy.
Well, to me, like I said before, with this supernatural entity, he gets shot, he gets back up. Because to me, under the mask and under the coveralls, he's just like Jason. He's got bullet holes that aren't healing. Like he's just continuing on, powered by this evil.
Right. Exactly.
But now he's supposed to be more human, crawling away and healing for a year to the day.
Yeah.
A year.
Yeah.
That's when it blows Michael out of the water for me.
Yeah, it's just there's just so many things that they like and again, like we were just talking in the last episode, like I like the idea of like, okay, so if Michael Myers survives, that's fine. That's not crazy. But the fact that he would have some sort of like still a relationship, and they kind of do, but not really. It's in a different way with Jamie, who is also like psychotic, or so we think at the start of the movie. And then it's like, what's the explanation they give? It's like, it's basically like a bad day at the office. That's the explanation. Oh, like, she's just a kid, and like, it's nothing to worry about. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. But, and then her mom that she stabs at the end of 4, in 4, it's alluded to that her mom is dead, right? Like she kills her mother. Sorry, not kills her mother, but her stepmom, right?
Yeah. Her foster mom. Yeah.
Her foster mom. Sorry, not stepmom.
Yeah. Okay. I said stepsister.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep all these family connections. Yeah, sorry, her foster mom. So it's alluded to that she brutally stabs her to death. And then in this movie, not so much.
Yeah.
Like it's just so like,
it's just
like why? So why is that important to this movie? And Rachel surviving is not important. And that's what I can't square that away. I hate it. And every time I watch the movie, I'm always frustrated. I'm a kind of okay with like Jamie being a mute and being traumatized so much that she doesn't speak. And she's messed up, and they're trying to kind of figure out what's wrong with her. And there's these I mean, I'm okay with that to a certain extent. Because again, you could do the turn, you could have her as like, oh, she's turning back into like this innocent little girl that we knew from the start of 4, but and you could do a swerve in there, and you could say, oh no, wait, surprise, she is actually pure evil, just like her uncle.
Yeah.
But they don't do any of that, and I don't know why. So the lead protagonist, other than Jamie, is Tina, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who goes on to basically replace Rachel in the film. And she's just like,
oh yeah, sorry, Tina. It's Wendy
Tina,
Foster.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
Glenn, that's her friend Samantha. Sorry.
Right. So
Tina is the main one.
But again, even those two, like, it's just, I can't get behind. I don't get it. Like, I'm like, sorry, all of my time was invested into Rachel. Rachel is the star of the movie next to Jamie. And now that support's being taken away, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so set up in such a weird way. Like, I much would have preferred there to be some sort of struggle with Rachel to say, I want to believe that there's good in Jamie. Like, she's not my sister. She's my foster sister, but she still knows her. She still fought to protect her. she's had this huge traumatic experience in number 4, and ultimately kind of save Jamie, but Jamie still turns. So that's so interesting to me. And whether or not she would have to kill like Jamie, whether or not she could kill Jamie if she had to, like that's fascinating to me. And such a rich plot and such a great film. And you could still have carried that on. You could have maybe had a part where it's like, oh, well, did she do it or did she not or whatever? Like, how did Rachel end this or whatever? And then whether or not how connected. So let's talk about this too, like how connected Michael and Jamie really are. Because this is the one where they allude to this. This is what I was talking in the last episode. They allude to this in 4, but they don't necessarily like pull the trigger completely on it. They do here.
With dreams.
Yeah. With the dreams, there's a psychological, connection between the two of them. That is, that Loomis is trying to figure out, but believes in, but can't really explain it to anybody. It's all a bit, and no, none of this movie or none of the negative stuff about this movie falls on Donald Pleasance, because Dr. Don, man, I mean, he shows up just like he does in all the other movies, and he gets this script that obviously we know is not very strong, and he does the absolute best that he can with it, and it's fairly commendable. I still like Loomis in this film. And again, he, like we were talking about last episode, he still respects the character. He does whatever he can with the character to make the character come to life in that weird way where he's like sort of a bit of a caricature of it's a caricature, but it's also, he plays it straight as much as he can while also hamming it up a little bit. Yeah, so none of this falls on his shoulders. But yeah, it's definitely it's a mess of a movie.
Well, he even had disagreements with Akkad and the director, because he was in the same boat as I think us. He said Jamie should have been portrayed as all evil after stepping her stepmother. But Akkad disagreed, thinking the fans wanted to see more of the Shape, Michael. In an interview, Danielle even said the same thing. She goes, I read 4 and I thought, okay, I'm going to be the killer. It would have been fun to come back as the killer or Michael's sidekick, which I thought they were going to go with in this one. But
which is a cool idea too. Right? Because like maybe Jamie comes back, like maybe, like, you know what I mean? Like she becomes Michael's sidekick. That sounds cheesy when you say it, but there's ways to do it, which will be really cool. And maybe Jamie is the reason that Michael can be defeated, because she is sort of has evil, but I don't know. I know that sounds a bit Star Wars-y, but like, I'm just saying, like, I still want to see that movie, and that's not what we got here.
Exactly.
And it's a bit bananas that I get that you want Michael in this movie because of course you just got rid of Michael in Halloween 3, didn't turn out well. You bring him back, you do big numbers. It's a big success. So Michael's got to be in this movie, and you can't really have a movie called Revenge of Michael Myers without having him in it. That's fine. I don't think anyone's ever saying like, we don't want to see Michael Myers. But just everything else in this flick is like they brought back all the cast too. It's strange. It's really strange.
Sheriff Meeks was almost neutered in this one too, though.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. He's not as prevalent in this film as 4, and he doesn't seem like he has the authority. Like he seems to, for some reason, he seems to have questioned what he's done in 4, or can't remember. There's a great line of dialogue. We were just talking about this before we jumped on the air. So I wanted to get to this dialogue too, where Loomis says to him, she was shaking, her whole body was shaking. And Meeker says, every time a little girl twitches, I'm supposed to call the National Guard, which is kind of funny. But then Loomis says, how many people you killed last year? Have you forgotten your own daughter? Delivered in a great way. But again, it's like, that's so different than the dialogue that we were talking about last episode in 4, where Meeker trusts Loomis and believes him and takes him seriously, even though they've just met. And even though Loomis is scarred and, sort of ranting a little bit because he's scared and concerned, but it's treated seriously. Whereas this movie just feels like it's like now they have some sort of conflict for reasons that really aren't explained, even though they kind of worked together and defeated Michael in the fourth movie. So, like you said, he's a bit neutered in this film and doesn't really have, like, that's the guy, like, his daughter died. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he should be having problems. Like, he should be, I mean, he should be, maybe he retired from the force, or like maybe he, like, has a crazy drinking problem because he can't deal with the death of his daughter. And maybe that's
I would
part of the flick, but yeah.
I would have seen him being a bit more obsessive about Michael because of the
Right.
fact
Yeah. Yeah. And now
with
he's
his
just like, whatever. He's like, I don't believe in any of this stuff. It's kind of like, well, what? Anyway, it's, yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, it's not a great film. I will say also, I think it's got the most driving by Michael Myers in a film since the original. I
right?
always forget that Michael Myers can drive somehow.
And
And
a different
yeah,
mask,
but he bombs through that field, right?
and with a different mask on in one scene, driving through through the town,
yeah, yeah, the mask. Oh my god, we should have queued up these masks and thrown them up on screen.
right?
Yeah, just because they're but like I mean I just got the some of the Scream re-releases in 4K, right? And I haven't picked up 4 and 5 yet in 4K. I just have the standard Blu-rays. But even the graphic artwork, like the custom artwork on those Scream Halloween releases for 4 and 5, like even the masks look weird. Like, and it's like, you should have just drawn the original, and I like, you would have, I don't know. Anyway, whatever.
No. And then this one also had the cops, the detective
Okay.
Nick
So
and Tom.
so tell the audience about the cops, because you'll do it better than I will.
And it drives me crazy that anytime they're on screen, they have clown soundtrack behind them just to show how bumbling they are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I don't understand how that stuff, it's those decisions where you're like, how did that make it past anyone? Like, how did nobody just say, we're not doing that?
That's Three Stooges. That's,
Yeah.
that is not Halloween.
Yeah, it's a bit bananas, and it gets called out in a lot of the reviews now and even back then, how it just seems so out of place and just a bit ridiculous that
Well,
that
I
they're
know
doing that.
I know he said he did it as an homage to Last House on the Left. Okay. But Last House on the Left was not prominent when they had that in there. Like, it was
Right.
just very subtle in the background. This, my God, every scene they're in, and it's like it slaps you in the face.
Yeah, it sucks. I know there's gonna be some people out there that'll be like, "Oh man, I love Halloween 5." They're gonna listen to this podcast and they're gonna be like, "Oh no."
Well, no, and that's just it. That's why art is art, because people interpret it differently and they love it differently.
Like, I would never say to somebody, never watch this film. I would never say never buy it. I mean, I own it.
No.
It's part of the series. I think it's important. It just, I guess my negativity for the film just stems from what could have been. And very clearly what could have been was right there. And they just, the people involved just didn't capitalize. And for the most part, same cast, same same production behind the scenes, different director, of course, and then, of course, different script. But everything, all the pieces were right there. And it pains me to think of what could have been, and sort of what they delivered. And I guess the great example for this is in a certain way, like we were talking about Nightmare before. Like, if you look at Nightmare on Elm Street, like, even when that series starts to come off the rails, they get to 5, and that's 5 movies, like, with Freddy. You can make the argument that Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, is a little bit out of sorts. So even if you remove that one, you're kind of looking at, I think it's comparable, and they still had some legs in that one. I think it runs off the rails probably halfway through 5, but in that series, but still, like, they're still creating, cool storylines and whatever. This is just such a, I guess they rushed it. I mean, I guess that's the only thing. Maybe if had they made this a year later, and made it with some more time, perhaps we would get a different result. But again, Rachel Crothers is one of the best things about this entire film series. And I can't stress this enough, often overlooked, because she's always, in the shadow of Jamie Lee Curtis, and maybe rightfully so. But she's incredibly overlooked in this entire series. She's one of the best people, one of the best characters. And it just sucks that they never used her more than what they did. And to get rid of her in the way they do, for the reasons that you stated, is criminal. It's so criminal that so that's what I'm talking about. It's not to rip anyone's art apart. I'm just saying, but you can tell when art's rushed and it doesn't turn out as good as when there's some time and some more TLC and more polish put into it. That's the thing that's the thing that really burns my biscuits,
I'm thinking that you and I need to talk to some people, because right now Ellie Corning and Danielle Harris are at the perfect age for a reboot sequel thing. We could have the real Halloween 5, The Evil Lives.
The Evil Lives. Yeah. I don't
See?
like what blows me away too is that like just the dynamic is cool, right? Like the fact that they're not really sisters, but they learn to be sisters. And I don't know. I like that stuff, right? Like I think it's strong. And
apparently people can make films and just drop them wherever in the timeline they want. So why not? We'll remake 5.
Yeah. Let's revisit that. Let's save that thought, because there's another couple of films in this series that I think they should have made differently, and I think that might actually play into that. So that's an interesting fact. So just remind me later on. I will try and remember too, and I'll say, Rob, tell me what that thing you're supposed to remind me of. Just remind me that it's supposed to be Rachel from Halloween 5.
Okay, you got it. But stay tuned, because when we come back, we're going to talk about the Man in Black and his significance to the downfall of Michael.